Hello, my name is Eleni Palas,
I'm Shadi Abu Zaid.
and we work with a company called Leaders for Good, which is a small woman-owned company that focuses primarily on leadership and team development. Anything related to the way we as individuals and teams or groups relate to each other in order to achieve meaningful goals where we are interested. So we do things like leadership development, team culture, designing a team culture, dealing with issues like resistance or conflict or pushback, or even talk about elephants in the room that help us really focus on the issues so that we become more constructive in the way we dialogue and collaborate with each other and innovate solutions that are long-standing. Now, today's workshop, you will see both of us, Shadi and myself, and also another, let's say, person or a photo, which is just an image of a tool we use to discuss thinking styles. In this workshop, we're going to talk about what thinking styles are, why we should care about it, and how it helps us as individuals, and then how it helps us either create conflict within a team, and in other words, if we're not aware of the thinking styles, or when we're aware, it helps us really understand what mind frame people are using who are different than us so that we communicate in a way that increases our chances of really having meaningful conversations that are productive and focused on the issues at hand. Now, there are three general thinking styles, and this is an introductory training session, so we're going to get through each one on subsequent ones. The first is future thinking. Now, this means that people use lenses, okay, they're born with the lenses of looking at what's possible. What's possible in a situation? What's possible in a problem? What are the opportunities of solving a long-standing problem or something that just came up? And so people are always looking at about ideas, what's new, what could be done, what should be done, so to speak, and it's always really creating amazing opportunities about what's possible. Now, past thinkers are focusing on certainty. So their lenses are always on, how do we make sure that we're making decisions that are really solid? What data do we look at? How do we collect that data? And are we gleaning the most relevant insight from that data? How do we structure it? What have people done in the past? What are the precedents? What has worked? What hasn't worked? And so people are looking at what's been done in order to help us actually put into action some ideas that will work for the long term. So people in the past, they look at how do we increase the certainty of the decisions we make so that we make solid decisions. Now, present people think, if you see on the top of the triad here, present people are always looking at, they have the lens of what could we do now? How do we put that into action? How do we organize things and plan and structure things? What rules and regulations do we need? What tools, IT tools or team interaction tools do we need? What's going to make sure that this action plan is going to succeed to increase the probability? So their lens is the probability of having success. Now, before we are aware of these ways of sifting, how we see things, we actually think that everyone thinks like us and everyone should. But in fact, we have these different lenses. It doesn't mean that we can't do all of the activities. What it means is we have different intensities of how we look at things. So now we're going to go into an example of how do we understand those intensities? What do we mean by someone has maybe more future thinking in their way of being and less of others? Let's now go into an example and pretend that we are Matt. Matt is a person, if you see this, his name, he's in the future-oriented section, so that's where he is. And now We can pretend we are Matt standing in that position where we're mostly future oriented, meaning we're always looking at possibilities. We don't necessarily collect data. We don't necessarily have a plan of how to put it into action, but we can see through intuition, through understanding things across industries, across themes, what's possible. And so you can imagine, you see that blue rubber band, which is lax. So that shows that he's very comfortable in thinking about what's possible, but he has tension, if you notice, with the green and the red, the present and past thinking. And that means that he would kind of resist it. Not that he would say it's wrong or it's not needed, but if he had to do something, he would rather be in the ideation or brainstorming aspect of a project issue or solution of a problem instead of the other. So he would start to resist either a plan of action or gathering data to make that idea more likely to succeed. Now, Shadi, do you have any other comments to add to Matt's experience?
In terms of Matt's experience, again, we need to understand that all three thinking styles are important. So there is no one thinking style that is more important than the other. And for us to succeed in any initiative, in any innovation, in anything related to that, we need to have the three thinking styles working together, albeit they might be needed at different times through the journey. So meaning Matt would probably be needed to brainstorm, to like go on a whiteboard and come up with ideas how to address and how to solve a certain problem. But once Matt comes up with such an idea, then Matt is going to be relying on another person that's going to take those ideas and try to look at data behind it to support the validity of that idea and to really understand what are some of the loopholes or the risks that might be stemming out of this idea. And once this is done, then we need to go to someone that is going to be able to take this idea and the supporting evidence that's been collecting through the data to make the idea move from an idea to an actual implementation that is implemented and it is taken into consideration. And that's how things work. So this is why this tool is going to help us understand the three thinking styles. So being a Matt, if I am Matt and I have this idea and then I go and talk to other people within my category, I got an idea. And then if that person does not belong to my same thinking style, that person is going to look at me and say, well, Matt is crazy. I mean, he didn't think it through. It might look an idea, but there are so many other loopholes that are in there. So meaning if I am Matt in here and I go and talk to Emma that is in here, Emma is going to look at me and is like, oh my God, I mean, show me data. Can you prove anything of what you said? I'm not going to be able to do that. So therefore, Emma is going to directly discount my idea as something that is too not realistic or something that is really up in the clouds in the sky. So therefore, this is where the tension starts coming in. And that's why we have in here, as we can see physically, with the tension that we have in here. But if Matt comes and talks to Cody, which is Cody belongs to that element in here, as we can see, we're going to be able to speak together pretty much simply without any major tension related to that, because Cody is able to translate also with us what we call in terms of the future thinking. The same thing would go with Sarah. But imagine what would John would say in here, who is the president. John would say, oh, I love your idea, but how are we going to make it happen? Do you have any plan how to put it into action? Do you have the money? Do you have the resources? Do you have all of these things? And this is where John is going to be turned off, because John cannot see the probability of making this a reality, so moving the idea to a reality.
Yes, exactly. And so let's say now we go to Emma. We sit in Emma's point of view and we talk. Emma is always looking at, what do we need to be certain about what we're doing, about what we're thinking? People who research, they use data, they analyze, they think, they contemplate. And so let's say Emma has been asked to come up with an idea to change a challenge or a problem. Now, notice that the red, so she has a lot of slack. In other words, she feels very comfortable in thinking about things and looking at trends and understanding what people have done in the past, what has worked, what hasn't. But it's not necessarily her go-to to come up with something as to what to do. So she may feel extremely stressed. So you see the pressure or the tension at future. She'll be like, oh my God, I have a lot of stress. I don't know what to come up with. I'm very anxious, and her anxiety and stress would go up, and it would create more kind of friction in her work. The same with the present. If you notice, the green hand is stressed or pulled, so she would have a hard time of thinking of how to put it into action. Now, let's be clear that even though she is naturally in her past thinking, we all learn. So we may have a lot of practice ideating or maybe putting things into action because we work in organizations. We have to make things happen. So we often learn how to do it, but what we want to say is that tension still exists. We may be functional, we may be excellent at doing other things, but the tension is inside of us. And so we can imagine that someone who's a future thinker has ease in creating ideas. A person who's a past thinker may have stress. They still do it, but they're stressed. And let's go to John in the present thinking. John would have no problem taking an idea from a colleague who's a future thinker and then working with data from someone like Emma, who's a past thinker, but he has that slack because he's good at putting things into action. He could see it in his mind, how to do it, what resources would needed, what are the risks, what would work, what we shouldn't do, what we should do, timelines, planning, organization, controlling things. He's super at that. He does it naturally. And so he would be able to do that without any pressure. The other people, future thinker or past thinkers, would have pressure into doing and planning and organize. And you can think of it yourself. Have you ever done something at work? That's not hard. You know how to do it, but it drains you. It stresses you. It tires you. But other things you do enliven you, engage you, excite you. And that's what we're talking about. So it's not that each of us don't have all the thinking styles within us. It's that we have preferences and we know exactly what value we bring. And so when we know what value we bring and then we align that value with a job requirement or a project requirement, we feel ease, we're engaged, we feel resourced, we feel heard and listened to because we're sitting in our comfort zone. Now, what happens frequently is this, you can see all the people on this Mind Time Triad or group triad. Basically, what it's saying is that people are located in different thinking styles, which means that the team as a group is reducing the risk of missing something or letting something fall through the cracks. Now, we've all had experiences on teams where things fall through the cracks. And what Shadi and I have learned is that, oh, those teams have clumps of people in certain thinking styles, and so they don't know that they're clumped in there. Everybody's thinking that they're actually assessing every problem, but actually because of their natural lenses, they may underestimate something or overestimate something or just pay more attention to this and not that, and things can fall through the cracks. So this is the benefit of understanding it on our individual level, so that we each can know what do we like to do, and because we like to do it, we do it very well. And then how do we understand people across thinking styles so that we don't need to think they're, incapable or off mark, but we can understand the thinking style they come from. And then that helps us then communicate in a way which increases the chances of being heard and understood, so that we all have a collaboration around the most important things that everybody's talking about. So this is the value of understanding it on an individual level. Now, on a team level, it's good to have such diversity. This is a part of diversity, equity, inclusion. It's not only the laws that we have to care about, but it's the thinking styles. Are we thinking in ways that complement each other so that we make sure that all of the issues we're dealing with in the work we do are taken care of in the best way possible? And so we have people located like Emma and Matt and John and Natalie and Sarah. We have people all over this board who then have the mindsets that are naturally looking at ideas about what's possible, data as to what we should do or could do or what's been done successfully or not, people in the present thinking of how do we put that into action and increase the probability of getting it done. And so everybody is understanding the value they bring and work together to achieve the goals that everyone is designed to achieve through teamwork and through an organizational mission. So these are the benefits of understanding our own thinking style and the group's dynamics or the group's composition of thinking styles, so that we make sure, number one, we're communicating in ways that people at each thinking style understand. And number two, we actually work together in ways that we do all the things that need to be done to increase the probability of success at every point within a project. Any comments or added points from you, Shadi?
Of course, let me put it this way. So if we go back here to Matt, and this is how it works within teams. So Matt, if Matt has these brilliant ideas and come and talk to Emma and tell, look how brilliant ideas, and he wants to convince Emma with it, you can see the tension in here. But if Matt knows that Emma has a different lens that he does have, meaning she has a lens of the past, then instead of coming to Emma to convince her about the idea, he can easily come to Emma and tell Emma, Emma, can you help me with this? I have this idea, but I want to see how we can find supporting data so that we can convince other individuals, so we can transform this idea into reality. So now the whole discussion changes. So I'm moving from the tension to what? To a collaboration so that it can help me further the agenda that I have as a future thinking in that particular case. So that's the beauty of understanding the different thinking styles. And the same thing would go between Matt and John. So now Matt is capable to come to John and tell him, look, you know what? We have this great idea. This is the supporting data we came up with, Emma, around it. Can you help us move this idea to reality? And what kind of resources do we need to make this happen? So this is what we said about the thinking style. They're all needed, but they might be needed at different times throughout an initiative, throughout an innovative ideas that we can come up with. And that's the beauty of it. So now we are able to speak the language of the different thinking styles that will further the agenda. Instead of creating conflict, it creates what? Smoothness all around. And it really helps us transfer our cultures from working in silos or working in a situation where we're butting heads into a situation where we complement each other. And that's what diversity is all about, is bringing all the ideas onto the table so that we can really get the things going, so that we really are inclusive enough of everyone, so that we can really further the agenda of our objective, our values as an organization doing this.
Yes. Excellent. I'd like to add also to see, imagine how this makes everyone feel.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of feel stressed, like I don't understand that person, or that person comes up with ideas that has no evidence, or that person wants to control everything we do, or there's so many stereotypical criticism or judgment and blame that naturally go across these thinking styles. And when we don't understand it, we're caught, as Shadi said, in this me versus you, I'm right, you're wrong, and there's a lot of effort and time wasted. But then imagine how individuals in a team then say, oh, I'm a future thinker. I love that. I'm validated. I always thought that about myself, but I didn't realize that that's something huge to bring to an organization. And then when I see it that way, and then I say, but okay, I'm not good with details on how to substantiate it, I will seek out people who have those skills. And then I'll say, you know what? I really need help in putting it into action. I might even be the the team leader who's a future thinker. And then I'll invite other people who say, come on the team, help me make sure that we have the best plan of action, thought of everything. And so then we go to seek out others who can help us, not out of fear of, oh, we can't do it and we're ashamed to say that. No, but out of openness and seeing that everyone has value to bring, and that we help everyone share their value. So someone's not sitting, in a small office, like getting all the data, and they have a gold mine, but they don't know how to communicate it. We can then go and talk to them and ask them, have you noticed anything that seems like a gold mine? Have you noticed anything that we could use to do X, Y, Z? And then we have completely different conversations, as Shadi said. And so this also increases the engagement, the diversity of thinking, and the respect of the value each person brings. And imagine this collaboration and innovation of people working together increases equity and inclusion. So this is a real live way of actually putting diversity, inclusion, engagement, collaboration, innovation into action so that people can actually behave differently and love it.
Good. So let's just summarize what we have done. We've covered the three thinking styles. So the future thinking is really looking for possibilities. The past thinking is looking for certainty. So that's why they look for data. And the present thinking, they mainly look for probabilities. So what's the probability of me making that idea a reality to transform? That's why the project management is so crucial, so critical for the present thinking style itself. With that in mind, we looked at also that how having two different thinking styles can create some tension and some conflict. And in a lot of the cases, it can create some miscommunication. And by understanding each other thinking style, that we might be having different lenses, that we can understand the context on which we are behaving. And once we do that, we can start translating our languages in that particular stage. So as Matt in here, knowing that Emma is on the past thinking, then Matt will be able to start speaking the language that will help him further the agenda of the future thinking by using and by relying on Emma's past thinking capabilities. And that really helps us to create more collaboration within teams and get the ball rolling. And this is how we start finding that the tension is actually relieved and everyone start doing things in a way that is helping them. So to give last example about ourselves, Eleni and myself, this is where we belong. It happens that both of us, we are here on the future thinking. It doesn't mean that we cannot do a project plan, but you give us an idea that we need to brainstorm and come up with it. We can spend 5 days, no sweat on it, and we will not feel the 5 days. But if you give us something,
we'll never feel tired.
Yeah, but we will work full time on it, no sweat, and we will really not feel the time in it. But if you come and tell us we need to do something in this area, that we need to plan something and so on, it doesn't mean we cannot do it. We can do it, but it's going to be agonizing for us. And this is how we make sure that people are satisfied within their work. They're really doing the right thing that is really matching and aligning with their own needs. And this can also help you on the recruiting further. So if I have certain gaps in a particular area, this helps us on the recruiting side for what to do. So it's not just about diversity in certain aspects, but the thinking diversity is so crucial, especially nowadays, especially with organizations that deals with consumers and customers.
So thank you for today, and we will come back to you with the next module of how then to use specific case studies that are specific to you and the teams you lead and work with in order to practice and apply this in your own team. Thank you.
Thank you.